Hello and a warm welcome to all lovers of thought and philosophy.
Today, we will be diving into Freud and the theory of the unconscious.
Sigmund Freud was a physician and neurologist who lived in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. He is regarded as the founder of psychoanalysis. It's important to understand that psychoanalysis is different from psychiatry. Psychoanalysis is not considered a branch of medical science. According to the standards of medical science, Freud's theories and psychoanalytic techniques are neither provable nor falsifiable. Therefore, today we will examine Freud's theory of the unconscious, not as a medical science, but as a philosophical perspective. The theory of the unconscious, and psychoanalysis in general, is useful not only for treating mental illnesses, but also for helping humans better understand their minds and psyches. In general, the human mind and psyche are divided into two parts, the conscious and the unconscious. Humans are relatively in control of the conscious part of their minds, and this part is clear to them. However, the unconscious, which constitutes the majority of the human mind, remains hidden and inaccessible. Imagine an iceberg in the ocean. If the tip of the iceberg that is visible above the water represents the conscious mind, the massive body beneath the water symbolizes the unconscious mind. Most of our mental and emotional problems, such as addiction, violence, and depression, are rooted in our unconscious. Yet, the unconscious is hidden from us and not directly accessible. The psychoanalyst strives, with the help of the patient, to access their unconscious and uncover the secrets of this mysterious realm, which is a challenging and time-consuming process.
Let me tell you a story. One day, a man saw his friend searching for something in his garden. He asked him, "Where did you lose it?" His friend replied, "Inside the house." The man then asked, "So why are you looking for it outside?" The friend responded, "Because it's dark inside and I can't see anything." The unconscious mind is also a dark space. Yet the solutions to our problems and the answers to many of our questions are hidden there and can only be found there. The unconscious is a vast subject. To avoid overwhelming you, today we will focus on the phenomenon of repression within the unconscious. Freud explained the mechanism of repression by stating that the human psyche is composed of the id, the ego, and the superego. The id represents our instinctual desires, which, according to Freud, are primarily sexual. The id is a driving force in the unconscious, which manifests as the ego in the conscious mind. The ego is formed by the id's influence on behavior, words, and emotions. But does the ego solely obey the id? No, fortunately not. If it did, every time we felt a sexual attraction to someone in the street, we would attack them to fulfill our desires. Or, whenever an inconsiderate driver cut us off and even cursed us, the rage and aggression in our id would force us to confront them and engage in a violent fight. Fortunately, we are all calm and considerate people, and such behaviors do not emerge from us. Why? Because in addition to the id and the ego, the superego also exists within the human psyche. The superego, operating in the unconscious, continuously judges the desires of the id. If it deems the id's desires dangerous, inappropriate, or immoral, it represses them, burying them deep within the unconscious. No desire, thought, or experience is ever erased from the human psyche. Whatever is forgotten in the conscious mind still exists somewhere in the unconscious.
So we see that the id and the superego are in constant conflict to maintain a balanced ego. Now, consider people who commit acts of violence or assault. Their psyche is unbalanced. Why? Because their superego is not functioning properly and fails to repress the inappropriate desires of the id. Similarly, Someone who cannot control their anger might either have a weak superego or an overly powerful id, driving their emotions to the surface. In some cases, the opposite happens. The superego operates excessively. You may have seen people who constantly strive to make everyone around them happy, ensure their words and actions are flawless, and maintain perfection in all situations. In such individuals, the superego suppresses the id's desires so heavily that everything must remain under strict control. This is likewise a form of psychological imbalance. Excessive repression of the id can have severe consequences. If the id ever manages to free itself from the superego's grasp and reach the ego, it may retaliate for all the suppression it endured. For instance, certain Christian priests who are forbidden from marriage and must repress their sexual desires throughout their lives. This extreme suppression can lead to disturbing outcomes, such as the sexual abuse of children in sacred settings. I encourage you to watch the film Spotlight, which is based on true events. It tells the story of a group of journalists investigating abuse by priests and uncovering widespread cases of child victims. Disturbingly, the church not only knew about these incidents, but also protected the offending priests to preserve its reputation.
Let's continue by exploring one of Freud's psychoanalytic cases. A woman was suffering from hysteria, a psychological disorder that can result from extreme repression. During psychoanalytic sessions, Freud discovered that she had harbored a sexual desire for her brother-in-law. Years earlier, when her sister had fallen ill, she visited her by her sickbed, and a thought emerged within her. If her sister were to pass away, she could freely pursue a relationship with her sister's husband. This unconscious thought was so shameful and inappropriate to her that her superego intervened, suppressing this desire and burying it deep in her unconscious mind. The woman completely forgot this memory, and both the sexual desire and the intrusive thought were wiped from her conscious awareness. Through psychoanalytic sessions using techniques like hypnosis, the patient retrieved this memory. With the psychoanalyst's guidance, she reconstructed that moment in her mind, but this time she expressed her true feelings. She imagined telling her sister how much she loved her, how deeply she would miss her, how heartbroken she was by her illness, and how she would give up everything to see her sister healthy again. After this session, the patient experienced a breakthrough and was cured of her hysterical symptoms. Now let's discuss another critical point. When the superego suppresses the id's desires and locks them away in the unconscious mind, those desires do not remain idle. Instead, they persistently try to break free and surface into consciousness. In many cases, they disguise themselves to deceive the superego and escape from the prison of the unconscious.
Let's explore a few examples to understand how this process works. Example 1. Slip of the tongue. A man visiting a house was mesmerized by the beauty of the hostess, who wore a low-cut dress. Embarrassed, he did not want her to notice his feelings. However, when he attempted to compliment the home's decor, he accidentally said, "What a lovely décolleté," instead of "What a lovely decor." His repressed desire revealed itself through this slip of the tongue. Example 2. Slip of action. Imagine someone who is usually an early riser but oversleeps on the day of an important job interview. Freud would argue that this is no accident. The individual may unconsciously dislike the job, but suppresses this feeling out of financial necessity. The unconscious expresses this dislike by making the person miss the interview. Example 3. Dreams and nightmares. Freud believed that the primary function of dreams is to fulfill suppressed and forbidden desires. Desires repressed during waking life often manifest in dreams. However, decoding the unconscious through dreams is not simple and requires collaboration between the patient and the psychoanalyst. Even though the superego is weaker during sleep compared to wakefulness, it remains active. Desires and wishes suppressed by the superego change their appearance in dreams, allowing them to evade repression. The dreams we remember are the manifest content, while the latent content must be uncovered through psychoanalytic interpretation.
For instance, a person dreams of receiving 2 balloons as a gift from his cousin. After several sessions, the psychoanalyst discovers that the person has a repressed sexual attraction to his cousin. Since such feelings are taboo in their culture, the superego suppressed this desire, burying it in the unconscious. However, the desire re-emerges in the form of this dream, attempting to reach the conscious mind. The psychoanalyst suggests that the person might have seen a balloon in the park, a magazine, or an image earlier that day, which triggered the dream. The 2 balloons may symbolize a part of the cousin's body, like her breasts. Keep in mind that dream interpretation is highly individualized. One object in a dream may have vastly different meanings for different people. The psychoanalyst must use their deep understanding of the patient to interpret the dream accurately. Freud's theories were shocking to the bourgeois society of Vienna at the time. Ideas that were considered taboo and unacceptable caused him to lose many of his followers. For example, Freud argued that even children have sexual desires. Of course, he did not mean genital sexuality. Freud understood better than anyone that genital sexual desire emerges during puberty. What he referred to as sexual desire in children was an intense emotional need for touch and connection. Freud went even further, claiming that an infant's first sexual desire is directed toward its mother, as she is the infant's primary connection to the world. However, as the child grows and the superego forms, this desire is strongly suppressed and buried deep within the unconscious. That is why people have no memory or recollection of these desires. Even today, such theories can shock people and be considered inappropriate to discuss, let alone during the early 20th century when societal norms were more traditional and restrictive. Regardless, Freud remains a thinker who elicits strong reactions. Some admire him as a genius, while others despise him and his ideas.
Thank you for listening and for your support. Until next time, stay curious.